happens in the wider world is not our concern, nor our responsibility. But we must never forget that we are heirs to a struggle for freedom. Our democracy, our individual opportunity only exists because those who came before us had the wisdom and the courage to recognize that our ideals will only endure if we see our self-interest in the success of other peoples and other nations. Now is not the time for bluster. The situation in Ukraine, like crises in many parts of the world, does not have easy answers, nor a military solution. But at this moment, we must meet the challenge to our ideals, to our very international order, with strength and conviction. And it is you, the young people of Europe, young people like Laura, who will help decide which way the currents of our history will flow. Do not think for a moment that your own freedom, your own prosperity, that your own moral imagination is bound by the limits of your community, your ethnicity, or even your country. You're bigger than that. You can help us to choose a better history. That's what Europe tells us. That's what the American experience is all about. I say this as the president of a country that looked to Europe for the values that are written into our founding documents and which spilled blood to ensure that those values could endure on these shores. I also say this as the son of a Kenyan whose grandfather was a cook for the British, and as a person who once lived in Indonesia as it emerged from colonialism. The ideals that unite us matter equally to the young people of Boston or Brussels or Jakarta or Nairobi or Krakow or Kiev. In the end, the success of our ideals comes down to us, including the example of our own lives, our own societies. We know that there will always be intolerance, but instead of fearing the immigrant, we can welcome him. We can insist on policies that benefit the many, not just the few. That an age of globalization and dizzying change opens the door of opportunity to the marginalized and not just a privileged few. Instead of targeting our gay and lesbian brothers and sisters, we can use our laws to protect their rights. Instead of defining ourselves in opposition to others, we can affirm the aspirations that we hold in common. That's what will make America strong. That's what will make Europe strong. That's what makes us who we are. And just as we meet our responsibilities as individuals, we must be prepared to meet them as nations. Because we live in a world in which our ideals are going to be challenged again and again by forces that would drag us back into conflict or corruption. We can't count on others to rise to meet those tests. The policies of your government, the principles of your European Union will make a critical difference in whether or not the international order that so many generations before you have strived to create continues to move forward or whether it retreats. And that's the question we all must answer. What kind of Europe? What kind of America? What kind of world will we leave behind? And I believe that if we hold firm to our principles, and are willing to back our beliefs with courage and resolve, then hope will ultimately overcome fear, and freedom will continue to triumph over tyranny, because that is what forever stirs in the human heart. Thank you very much.
The president delivering a lengthy speech before a group in Brussels, Belgium, on U.S.-European relations, but spending the bulk of the speech condemning Russia for what it has done in Crimea and Ukraine. The president saying Russia's violation of international law, in his words, is an assault on Ukraine's sovereignty and territorial integrity and must be met with condemnation. The president insisting, though, at the same time that the U.S. and the Europeans with Russia are not on the eve of another Cold War. He says this is not another Cold War we are entering into. After all, unlike the Soviet Union, Russia leads no bloc of nations, no global ideology. So the president warning, though, if Russia pursues in its actions in Ukraine, the U.S. and the Europeans will take further actions, presumably referring to tightening up of sanctions. A very strong speech from the President of the United States in Europe. He gets ready to fly to Rome. He'll meet with the Pope at the Vatican tomorrow morning at the Vatican. Much more of our coverage coming up on the President's trip to Europe. Also coming up, searching for Flight 370 in an ocean with waves that can reach 30 feet and where weather can take a serious turn for the worse in an instant. How the brutal conditions are now affecting the search area. That's coming up next.